Hello, everybody. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. So you've been eating yogurt and you're gate crashing my live video. Are you gate crashing? Yes, you are gate crashing, but you're not going to gate crash for longer. Welcome, everyone, to our second live conversation on the landscape of fatherhood in South Africa. I am so excited to be having this conversation, but I'm always excited to have these conversations. This is the second one. The first one is live on YouTube and Facebook, and I had the conversation with an organization called Hotlines. Yes, an organization called Hotlines, and they recently did research on fatherhood in South Africa. So that was an amazing, insightful conversation. And today we are continuing the conversation with fathers that I know and fathers that I love and fathers that I've seen father. So I thought it would be a really good idea to continue the conversation on fatherhood with real life dads that have really taken the role on. Wow, we're watching cartoons right now. Somebody, please take this one for me, please. Apologies for our guest. She's out here having the time of life. I'm just going to get somebody to assist in a second, and then we're going to continue the conversation. Okay, cool. So let's continue and introduce two of our four guests for the day. And our first guest is paternal.
Oh,
Hello there.
wow. Yeah. Why you say my name with such aggression? I'm such a soft guy.
No, you really are a soft guy. It just came, man. Welcome to our conversation.
Thank you so much, Dumela. Hello there. Just gonna
say hello there. Someone is watching cartoons and having the time of her life.
Oh.
Just give me.
Hello there.
I'm gonna add Sanele into the stream. Welcome, Sanele.
Hello. How's it?
Hi, Sanele. Hello.
Hello, Timo.
You guys meet each other. I'm gonna handle my child situation. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, no, I know those cartoons too well. Yes.
Well, anyway, there's no day off when you're a parent. Otherwise, Jayam?
No, I'm good. You know, little one is sleeping. Gisha Punje just taking it easy. It's a Friday after the long. It's like kind of like a long weekend, but it's not. And yourself, how are you?
You don't like
I'm good. I actually took the day off, so I've been gallivanting in Gauteng. But what actually happened was I just got stuck in roadblocks. Everywhere I went, there was a roadblock. So I left the house.
People are just like, it's level 1!
So yeah, that's been most of my day. But yeah, it's been a good day though.
So thank you gentlemen for joining me today. I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you guys. So maybe Sanele, you can introduce yourself to the audience just in terms of how old your son. Who are you a father to, basically?
Oh yeah. What a privilege and an honor it is to be on the show. Thank you for having me. My child is Umusa Wenkosi. Recently, he was 15 months yesterday. So yeah, very young, very active. Started calling me recently this week. He started calling me by name. He's like Usa. I think he gets because his mother always calls me Usa. So now he's like Sa. And then when I don't respond, he's like Papa. So yeah, it's so amazing, like being a dad and always. But I say like it's always like you're freestyling the whole thing. Like there's manuals and there's all these things, but every time like you come to grips with the stage, right? You're like, yeah, now I know what to do in the stage. I've figured it out. There's something new tomorrow.
Look, I can confirm that if there's anything that's called guesswork, it's being a first-time parent. Guesswork all the time. I'm guessing today, and I'm an 8-year-old. So
8 years later.
8 years later. Yeah. So yeah, it's guesswork for me. My daughter's name is Nala. So she's 8. but more like an 18-year-old or 48-year-old, depending on the day you catch her, right?
Oh,
So,
snap.
so yeah, but it's been fun. It's been a wild ride, but it's been fun. It's fun when they teach you who you really are and how you really can react to situations. That's been the most interesting thing. Yeah,
For
because
sure.
I mean,
It's
I I thought I was stuck in my own ways, but nope.
you'll
You know,
bend, Baba. You'll bend. You'll become soft.
I
You'll
look.
you'll
I've said I would
reconsider
never do this
ways.
thing. I will
But
never. Then
did you guys go in it with a plan? Okay, I'm gonna be this kind of dad, or like this is how I'm gonna be, and then like the journey is like, no, actually, you can't even determine how you will parent.
you know what? I thought I had a plan. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's when I realized that this is guesswork. Because for the first 3 months, she lived with the parents, go KZN, with the mom's parents, go KZN. It was a whole 3 months of the child being, I guess, incubated. You know,
Yes.
so she
Yes.
was that side. So I was okay, and I
Yes.
was in my head thinking, yeah, when the child comes here, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to treat her. We're going to be. This is the behavior in the house. Then she came. Firstly, I was just soft. I was just that guy. I was carrying her
Is it
Yeah.
is
everywhere.
it
I
different
didn't
with
want to put her
daughters? Because
down. I don't know. I don't know.
like having
I
having a daughter, like how did that affect you? Like, because I hear you were soft and you were still about to carry on, but just I think that for
mm,
me it's like always the interesting dynamic. I think the father-daughter dynamic is always like the interesting one.
look.
Like,
Uh, so I mean, normally I wouldn't admit these things, but since we're here, right? I mean, I'm a calm type of person. I think I'm reserved. I think I'm quiet, and I don't think I have got like an abrasive personality, right?
So,
But I am stubborn in certain things, right?
yeah.
And I knew this is who I am, so I thought, right? As far as children and everything else.
Yeah.
And in the first place, firstly, I didn't want to know the sex of the child because I just wanted to be a surprise, so I can just be happy about it.
Okay.
Because then I thought if I knew if it's a son or if it's a daughter, then I'm gonna then change my way, right? Or I'm
Mm,
gonna then lean towards some kind of expectation. So then I then decided if it's whatever it is, whomever the person is going to be, I should say. But then the relationship I've had with her is that, firstly, I am more respectful to people, because
mm.
also I've been called out when I'm being harsh with people, when she tugs at me and goes like, you're not being nice, you
Oh
know.
wow.
And also I had the normal way guys like us grow up from the 90s is that we're taught to look at women a certain way. We're taught this is how you behave with women. And then I had a daughter, and at first I was like, this is the universe saying halala, payback, papa. Your behavior towards women may not have
Yes.
been great. It's cast off, but
uh,
it's but she's more like me in certain things. Like, she's just like straightforward in certain things that she wants. So I don't think I would have been a different dad if it was a father, if it was a son. I just
So it
think with
depends
the daughter.
on a couple of things.
Yeah, look, the perspective I have, I I guess it's part of my character is always to be very protective of people, very
Yeah.
protective of women. Having been raised by a single mom, and my grandmother's my aunt, and so it's always been like the people that I gravitate towards to try and be respectful and nicer towards. Machita, I don't know, Machita, we've always been told, you fall, you scrape your knee, ML, just put some
Mm,
sand in it and just run again and see if you fall again, right? So we're not taught to stop and say, actually, I'm in pain. But I've noticed with women, that's some of the things that you guys are in tune with, to say, look, this is the pain I'm dealing with.
yeah.
Hold on right now. Let me just deal here. And so my perspective has been try to make sure that happens, that she doesn't become like me in a sense of my natural way of thinking. I've dealt with it just once, so yeah, the perspective is that I need to step carefully. That's been that for me.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So,
if
sorry,
as
Sam.
someone who has a son,
Yeah.
yeah, as someone who has a son, I find myself like just when this guy runs around the house and he trips and falls, it pains me a little bit, but I have to like kind of guard myself and just observe a little, and then just to see is how bad is he hurts, and then if he's not that hurts, I don't like people like reacting, because then I feel like uzodefa, which is which is such a weird dynamic because I want him to be like strong and independent, but at the same time it also like kind of hurts when he can start doing things on his own, like because then I'm like, but then you don't need me anymore, like dude, come on,
Mm.
I used to enjoy carrying you and until Zulal, and now he's just like jump, you know and he wants to get out of the hands, and run around the house just like, yeah. So where do you strike the balance, what do you do?
Yeah.
But also because you want him to like not make the same mistakes you made and make his own, but at the same time you also don't want to like crowd him and then always be
Sure.
overprotective. You want him
Sure.
to be independent, learn from his own mistakes, but then if you want him to learn from his own mistakes, then you need to let him make those mistakes. Like before I became a father, I'm really obsessive compulsive about things being in the right place at the right order, and habits and routines are like my thing, right? So I live by habits and routines. But now this guy comes and he just like messes all the crayons we've just put away. He comes and he just takes this, leaves it there, takes that from there, puts it here, and then he just goes about his life, right? And then you're like, the house is a mess.
They've
And
got
then
no
I end
regard
up being
for
like,
you.
and
They've
he's
got no
learning. So
regard.
it's not like, no, none. And it's not like he's doing it to be malicious or bad or naughty, but
Yeah.
literally that's how he learns. That's what a child does. That's how children learn. That's how children like know about the world and stuff and things, right? So he's not being naughty. He's just being like every other child, and I have to kind of let a few things slide that I wouldn't have let slide 2 years ago.
2 years ago, you were different. You were a completely different person. You're back. It's okay.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I don't know what
I
happened.
was dead set in my ways 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Dayom
So,
Zulu in now I'm just like, it's fine. If he speaks a bit of English,
yeah.
with pain in my heart, I will let it go.
Yeah. Well,
So,
if I just
yeah.
wanna, sorry to interject there. So the funny thing is that my child for the first 3 years she spoke Zulu, right, and very well. Like it was a surprise whenever people hear her speak Zulu. Firstly,
Wow.
because if you hear me speak Zulu, Shem, it's a mess, right? And so whenever she'd say something to me, I would respond in my language, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to make things awkward between me and this child. But now she speaks a lot of English. But I
Yeah.
think in the last 2 weeks, she said to me, "Look, I'm learning Zulu from mom. I need you to teach me how to speak Setswana properly because she can understand and
Oh,
she can
nice.
say certain words." But I think now, the older she gets, she realizes that two different types of families, two different types of languages. So the older people may not grasp English like I do. So I want to be able to communicate with them, which is it's
Yes.
fascinating when they make that decision to say, "Look, we speak a lot of English. Let's try and speak some of our languages," which is interesting.
Oh, that's
Hey, now
very
you have to
interesting.
backpedal now. Now you have to scratch for those other words.
Ish. Now I have to kuza Kastswana. Normally I can behave. Now because now I'm like trying to say don't do that, but Kastswana, but in a way that is aggressive because my language doesn't really have the most aggressive of tones, right? It's the nuance of the language, but I can't be aggressive Kastswana and say, hey. It's not there.
Yeah, what do you say? Anyway.
What do you say? It's just that.
Yeah. So, gents, what I would like to also chat about, right? I was talking to a friend of mine not so long ago, actually, about a mom, about how our world completely changes after the birth of a child. Obviously, there's this human being that is entirely and completely dependent on me, right? Whether I'm breastfeeding or not, it's just there's a human being that is looking to me for their mere survival. So a lot of moms would actually argue that nothing really changes in a guy's life after they become a father, which I beg to differ. Like I've experienced something completely different with my own partner. I've definitely seen how the journey has not necessarily transformed him, but how he has transitioned from the person he was before he became a father to the man he is today. So I've seen the changes. But what would you guys say? Would you guys say you've changed after childbirth? Do you feel like there's a bit of a transition that you went through, or a transformation that happened in your life after the birth of your child?
You know, to answer that question, the simple answer is yes, right? And I can understand why a lot of mothers would say nothing changes in our lives, because for a long time it's you and the baby, right? And then for a long time it's you being the one who wakes up at night, being the one who does the nappy changes and all these other things, right? So I changed. For me, it changed me, right? I had nephews. Well, it's funny because growing up in black families, they're basically my cousins, but I raised them, right? So I was always aware of changing nappies, making sure that the child eats, those kinds of things. So those things I knew. But for me, I think what happened was, because the first 3 months, my baby was somewhere else, right? So I was sitting alone, planning all these things. I could understand the loneliness that my partner at the time would have felt. That I'm alone, he's not here, and I was going out, I was partying, I was Nikita Braamfontein every other day I could, because I could. The child wasn't there, but as soon as the baby was there, we had it wasn't even a discussion of what do you do. It was a case of, look, I just came from my shift, please take over. It was a case of, look, the baby is crying, the first one to stand up is the one who's going to go after the baby. So I, th- I can understand that concern, but I think it all depends on the kind of situations you might be in, right? So we
Yeah.
lived together for the purpose of me making sure that I can support her, because we worked shifts, right? So now
Yeah.
I needed to be sure that, because in my head, because I was paranoid at some point, in my head is that if you're coming from a shift as a human, I know me. If I'm coming from a 12-hour shift as a human, just carrying this thing, I can drop it. Now imagine a child, right? In my head, I'm thinking, what if this person is just really tired and it's not their fault and they drop the child? I'm going to be upset that the child was dropped. I'm going to be upset with myself that I wasn't there to
Yeah.
support you with the baby. So I can understand the concern, but I think it's just the situation that you might find yourself in.
Yeah, let me ask you, right? Zibu Sekunen is also me and him are here. So he's asking, how did the 3 month gap affect you, Daddy? And I like this because I was also thinking about that. About we call it spetsi, right? Where when
Yeah.
you just gave birth to a child. So last week when I was talking to Pamela of Heartlines, we spoke about how culture perpetuates that parenting is mostly the role of the mother, right? Because then you're not there in the first 3 months of the child's life, which is a very important phase in their lives. And as much as my world is rocked as a woman, it would be nice for us to be in the same space so that we can experience together as partners. Did you find that the 3 month gap, like he's asking, did that gap affect you when they finally came and you started staying together, did you find like you had a lot more catching up to do in comparison to if you guys just started the journey together?
Yeah. So the 3 months for me, right? I overcompensated, right? In my head,
Okay.
I wasn't there for 3 months, so I would take the child, go to the park with her, and I would say, go with your friends. If you want to go somewhere, don't worry about it. She's fine with me. I haven't broken her yet, so she's fine. So
Yeah.
it made me want to do more, want to overcompensate for the time that I felt unfairly I wasn't there. But I mean, our cultures are like that, right? So I knew that even if she was from the same culture as me, I still would have had to spend 3 months without seeing the child. The difference might have been we might have been from the same area, where as the father of the child, I'm allowed to come see the child whenever the opportunity presents itself. In her area, she was somewhere else, like 500 k's away. And I didn't even and I don't think, now that I'm thinking about it, that I ever even asked if I could come down to see the baby, right? The first time I saw the baby was when she was born, and when they had to go to hospital because she was born in a clinic, and then when they had to go to hospital for extra tests for the mother, right? And then the second time I saw her, so I would see pictures. Second time I saw her is when we went to go, and I went to go part with some paper things that we consider to be money, you know. That's the second time I saw her, and and on the way back, all I could think about is that I've missed so much. She looked so much bigger than the first day I saw her. She was starting to make sounds, to smile. I mean, when my late grandmother and my mother were, and my even my uncle, who is a bit funny with kids because he hosts them like this, and when they held her, it felt like she was happy to be held by those guys. And when I did, it made me feel like, yo, I missed so much. And when they came, then I was like, from the moment they landed, I think the whole 2 days I spent it with her. I don't think I even took a shower or anything. Just spending the time with her, playing with her on the floor, lifting her, just making sure that she's fine. There's some time when I was like, is she breathing? Like, and I didn't know. Also, the other thing that affected me over the 3 months is that I gained during the pregnancy. So I was there during the pregnancy, right? And I wanna tell the world this, that I'm the one who was like, look, we're pregnant. Okay. I was like, look, this is happening. This is happening. I can see you're looking very different.
Yes.
So and I gained all those pains. I was going through morning sickness. I was going through back
Wow.
pains. My ankles were sore, and I was working in a coffee shop, so I had to stand most of the time. It was just painful, right? So the 9 months of it, I went through it, except for the physical labor. And then there was a 3 month gap where I was excited, but I couldn't do anything about it. And I filled it with going out and being and looking like I'm having a good time. But deep down, I was just missing a person. I was just missing my kid.
Yeah.
I was missing a mom, and I was just like, I'm not there. So it made me want to overcompensate, which I did.
Sure. That's actually so profound. So would you continue supporting the 3 months, or would you say let's make it shorter, or let's not do it at all?
Look, so don't be fooled. I'm very traditional in my ways of looking things, right? At things. I support the 3 months, but I support access to the child for the father. Right? So do the 3 months as your culture would dictate it, or as you would perceive your culture, because the culture is an evolving thing, right? So as you would see it, as it fits you, but give access, to the child, especially in situations where you are unmarried and the father has, come to you and said, look, this is me here. This is my child. I'm accepting responsibility. I want to participate here. I want to make sure that I give support to this person. So the 3 months or 2 months or however you choose, however long you choose it should be, but give
Yeah.
access to the other parent, because I think it's only fair for you to be able to, that 10-minute break could be the difference that the other person needs, So yeah, I support it.
Yeah, I love that. I also support it because we need the support as new parents from adults, because it's a life-changing moment when a child has arrived in the world, and us having to figure it out on our own is quite difficult. But I do love it. I love that father should be given access during that time.
It's quite an important thing to bond with the child. And I also used to consider myself like very traditional. So we were fine with the whole 3 months thing. My wife and I, we agreed, okay, she's going to go to her mother's place for 3 months. But as soon as he was born and I cut that umbilical cord, it was over. I was just like, nah, whoever wants him can come here. They can come see him here, The mom can stay here as long. Yeah, like I also want to learn, you know what I mean? Like I also want to, I don't want to have to drive to Limpopo every weekend or whatever. It's not even that, like, but it's not even like not driving. It wasn't like a selfish thing. It was like just the thing of like, I want him to be here so that I can see that he's okay and I can help with whatever I need to help with. So, and just the thought of like him being somewhere else, even for like 2 days or 3 days, it drove me literally insane. I couldn't bring myself to get to that point where I'm like, okay, he's fine. He's gonna be Kokai for a weekend. I'm like, nah, wherever he's going, I'm going with that man, and I'm going with that. I wanna see how, because it's my first child, So it was quite interesting when we first brought him back from hospital. I like to consider myself as flexible. When it comes to, yes, I'm a Zulu guy. I don't practice the traditions as much, but when it comes to like the language and the heartiness, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's cool. If you want to do it, do it. But I promise you, when we first brought him into the house in his carry cots, the first thing I did was tell him zonke ithakazelo zakhe, walked him through the whole entire house, saying shibe baphela caba mkhombeni yini lana ila uzohlala khona nali ikamero lakho, here's your room, ila uzohlala khona, we're going to love you, we're going to protect you, we're going to be here for you, we're going to make sure that into nento oyidingayo uyohlezi unayo, like ngeke uzuswele lutho. And I think that became the drive, like, and you asked, has being a father changed me? Now, like, I look at everything and I look at it through the eyes of my son, right? I'm like, if my son were to see me do this, would he be proud of me? If he were to see the quality of my work, the quality of how I interact with his mom, would he be able to take these things and be like, what, I've got a blueprint for life, and it blueprint right, and then to answer your second question about the mother and the thing, for me, it was quite hard actually for the first 3 months to bond with him. Even though like I wanted him here, like I wanted to force that bond because he didn't want formula at night. He didn't want like warmed breast milk. He wanted like ukuthabanjwa mawake and ancele. So the only thing that I could do was kind of like wake up and look at them. So I tried. After a while, I'm like, I'm trying, guys. Guys, do your thing. Do your thing. But then
let's chat about that. Sorry to cut you off. I think it's a perfect moment to just interrupt. Right? So Uzbuse said something very nice where he said, dads parent differently. And I always say to Gucci, like we always say, you guys have just useless nipples, right? Because like at night, the best thing to do is help. You have useless nipples, Pokela. Like why are you useful?
They're just aesthetic.
I wouldn't agree, but maybe we haven't found a way to use them yet. We haven't found a use for them. That's what I think. I mean, I don't know. We haven't.
Your sound.
Hi guys.
Okay,
Keep
we
it.
were
Hey, how's it, Sapelo?
Hi, good. I'm sorry for being late, guys. Life happens. Actually, our discussion today is the reason why I'm late. I had to go pick up my daughter today, so I got held up in Pretoria doing adult things. So I had to be here at a certain time to be able to pick her up. Unfortunately, my dynamics. I don't know how far you guys have gone with the conversation, but my parenting
okay.
dynamics are. I don't live full time with. Yeah, I don't live full time with my daughter, so there's days like weekends I have her some weekends, and then some weekends she's with her mother. So this was my weekend, and unfortunately my adulting things made me late. So yeah,
Don't
my
worry.
apologies, guys.
We forgive you. We forgive you. Okay, cool. So what we were talking about? Hold on, there's an echo. Chapel, which speaker are you using?
I'm using my phone speaker.
You need to put headphones
Am I the only
on.
one hearing the echo?
No, he needs to put
Getting
headphones
it.
on.
Okay, let me quickly switch over to my laptop and then I'll jump on again.
Cool. We'll see. Sharp. Okay, so you guys have useless nipples. So and sometimes it would frustrate me so much while I'm breastfeeding and this guy's just even snoring, right? And the kind of resentment,
Yeah,
the resentment.
and bumnandi lo babuthongo lo won't lie. Like ubuthongo bevuka ingane. Yes, that's the best one. Like
When they do this
it's
to you,
different. Yo,
what is
dude,
this?
it's like bumnandi. Yes.
Oh,
You're like, yo, did you hear them cry last night? I'm like, yo, ukhalile.
So I would build a resentment on my own. Would you, he's here sleeping and I'm here, breastfeeding and struggling on my own. So what I noticed I didn't do is I didn't make it known how frustrated I am. So do you guys find it that it's better when the mother tells you how you can participate actively in the journey? Do you think sometimes mom just leave you guys to figure it out on your own? Or would you like to figure it out on your own? So I would like to understand that, like in terms of changing nappies, because sometimes we have expectations which how now that so when the nappy is dirty, you need to change it. But obviously we experience motherhood very differently to you guys, or parenting very differently to you guys. So do you guys want to be told what to do? Okay, the nappy is dirty, please go change it. Or at night, okay, I'm tired, please take the baby. Or do you guys want to figure it out on your own?
My obsessive compulsive nature won't allow me to have him sit with a dirty diaper. Hey, I can't. I'd rather. Just the thoughts of good, like I am shisa, like the pee is cold because of the pee, or amakaka, like I am shisa, can't stand it. I'd rather get up and do something about it. Like I don't have to get direction. I think it's a bit of both, because sometimes you do want to like know what the other partner is thinking, but also at the same time, like you don't also want to be told all the time as if like manje nami, like I'm clueless, like I don't have
Like
instincts.
you have useless nipples.
Yeah, like like
Did I
I'm hurt. It hurt me.
this man works hard on his nipples, okay? Like
I take care
here
of these
you are
nipples
calling
and I
them useless.
moisturize
You
them.
know what I mean? So it's like for me, like it's definitely a combination of both. Like sometimes, okay, I sometimes have to, like I say, no, but I've also got instincts too. Like you know what I mean? Like, there's a thing that tells me, yo, and I have to run and grab him. Or sometimes I'm just like, yo, he's been crying a lot. It's like, okay, maybe he's hungry. But then you'll see them like struggle with other things, and then like you give him food, and then he's really fine. So I do believe that I've also got like the paternal instincts within me. So, but like sometimes there are things like if you really are tired and you're like, you know what, can you just make him tea? Can you make him this today? He needs to eat this. He needs to eat that. Then that's fine. But it mustn't be a micromanagement situation, because I think sometimes, hey, you ladies can also be overbearing.
So I agree with your first sentiment. I cannot sit there knowing that maybe this person has soiled himself or something like that. So I used to check all the time. Like I said, there was some paranoia in my head that something just happened. Just go check. So I don't think you should tell me. I think I should be. I should figure it out for myself. But I think also that's going to be the kind of person that you are. So the kind of person I am is that I don't want to wait for things to go wrong, and I want to prevent those things going wrong. So I would always check on the child and be like, "Oh, okay, now she's a bit too quiet. Okay, maybe she's sleeping. Maybe I need to just check if she's sleeping comfortably. So I don't think the whole being told thing would work for me, because also I know
Yeah.
this needs to happen. It's
Right?
just not happening at
Right?
the pace you wanted. Yeah. So
Wow. Okay.
so and to answer part of your question is that, and I think Zibuse is also saying the same thing. If you're feeling that I'm slacking somewhere, I'm happy if you tell me, look, I'm slacking. I need your help here. Maybe pick up here,
Yes.
so that I can, so that then I'm aware of, okay, this is something you're just not able to do at the time, or
Yeah.
it's piling up, and maybe I then should pick it up. So
Yes.
yeah, I think communicate with me if you're feeling like I'm missing something. But I don't think you should wake up and say, but you must do this, especially if I'm saying to you, no, today you can go and visit people and go do your errands, go do whatever. Secret lah,
Yeah.
and then you give me a list of what I must do. Then it's a problem. Then
You don't want list.
I don't want a list.
At night, mommy can breastfeed and daddy can change the diaper, which further attests to me saying you guys have useless nipples.
No. Can we move past the nipples?
Sorry.
Jabulu Karabo, like, yes, our nipples are superior. It was like, yeah.
This is happening, and I'm like, I don't want to go there.
I want to. Hello. Can you hear us?
Hello? Yeah.
Okay,
How's the echo? Is the echo good now?
Gone
It's
now.
gone.
It's good.
Gone now.
Did you know what to do the first time you were a father and you held this small human? Did you know what is to be done with this small human, or was it like a big shock to you?
No, I did. Hey, unfortunately, I grew up in a household filled with women. So, I didn't. I think when you go around women, your nurturing instincts kick in immediately, because I think women, in the way they carry themselves, you pick up those innate lessons on how. So for instance, when my aunt had her first child, I was so attached to a child. So even seeing how my aunt used to raise him, so from there already those little lessons on how a baby is burped. For instance, I saw one of the comments for how a baby is burped, how you change a napkin, or how you make a bottle, how you test to make sure that it's not too hot for the baby, how you check if the water is fine to make sure that it's suitable temperature for the baby to bath in. So all of those lessons, actually, I had them under my belt before my own child came into the world. So when it came in, it was just a natural extension of all those lessons I'd already learned. So, and I was fortunate enough that when my baby was born, I was in Cape Town at the time, but I was lucky enough to have been able to fly down to Gauteng to actually be there on the day that she was born, and I was the first one to change her first napkin. So the first napkin was literally changed by me because her mother was like out of it. So I was the one to literally change her first napkin. So like I said, it's not. It's like obviously having your own child and raising like your niece. The dynamics are different, but the basics are fundamentally the same. The basics are fundamentally the same. So I took it in my stride, and it was just unfortunate. Like I was here for the first 10 days, and then I had to go back to Cape Town. So, but those first 10 days that I was here, I did as much as I could to contribute to her being in the world. So that was, I was happy that I was able to be part of that journey of her coming into this world, and knowing affection and love and nurturing and care. So it was things that I was actually quite comfortable with.
That's awesome. Wusatu, we must give you a Virgin Bells.
Yeah. No, he's winning. He's winning his daily life.
Oh, he's winning.
Yeah, this man, he's focused. This man, he's not about playing those games.
Did you know how to test the water temperature?
I didn't. I I honestly, in my head, in my perfect world, I was going to put hot water and mix
Okay.
it, right? And do like
Yeah.
Yeah.
what I would normally would do, right? And
Yeah.
then the child, I mean, human body says, dip it in. It's too cold. It's too hot, right? So I was like, the child will figure it out. She will, she'll let me know, right? And then,
But I didn't know.
look, as I was about to put the child in, luckily, luckily, her mother was behind me. It's just like, hey, hold up.
It's the instincts, guys.
She's like,
What are you
Something
hold up.
doing?
tells you, hey, let me go check there.
Yeah, no, no. The mother was like, hold up. This is, you must test. This is
Yeah.
how you know, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Ah,
Why is this?
it's legend, eh? It's legend.
So I didn't
I
Because
know,
know.
guys.
be,
So,
I
so
didn't
the
know. I
first
could have
time
burned my child.
you could have. So Utapelo says he changed the diaper the first time. So Chaba also did when we were at the hospital. He's here also. He's busy laughing. I'm gonna embarrass him as well. So this guy is changing the child's diaper. And I mean, the baby's bum is the size, right? And then he gets the diaper properly, he gets a wipe, he wipes properly, and then he puts baby bum cream all over his hair.
Why must the child get a rash?
The whole child must be dipped in
No
baby
room.
cream.
Listen.
no chance,
That's
not taking
thinking.
chances.
Not
Not
taking
taking
You
any
chances.
can't be
chances.
taking chances there with a
Ah,
baby.
you can, you can.
Mm.
But
Look,
that if I could say one thing, when babies are so small, no matter how much, like I said, even though I'd seen children being raised in front of me and I picked up tips, but they're so fragile. Hey, you're afraid you're gonna break them. I
Yeah.
think that is one thing that I think that was one thing that I struggled with because I'm naturally clumsy. I'm not rough, but I'm a clumsy person. So I'm that person who bumps into things and drops things, and
And
it's just I have an awkward nature about my how I handle things. So I think that was the
yeah,
one thing that had me on my toes. Like, hey, if I drop this little thing, because they're so fragile, hey, and even their
yeah,
bones are fragile, and like their skin is fragile, like everything about them is like, yeah. I think that was one thing that I struggled with, how to just how to carry that gentleness or that fragileness. Yeah, it was a struggle for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
sure.
No, so I didn't change the first diaper. So I was there. So I took a bus down. So I needed. It was a stop start situation for us. So the day
Okay.
before, she's like, "I'm in labor." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna take the bus." Right? Because we were estimated it could be about 8 hours for the labor and everything else.
Yeah.
And I'll take the bus down. By the time I get down to Maritzburg, you should be sorted, right? It should be around the time when the child is being
Yeah.
delivered, right? Because
Yeah.
she was already that side. Took the bus. Well, the next day after they sent it back and said, "I know you're not in labor, Sisi. Relax, go back," right?
It's a
And then so I canceled my bus ticket, and then 8 hours later, she says to me, "Yo, it's happening." I'm like, "Okay, now I'm coming. Final, final." I go down. I get there. I get there just as things are happening. The
yeah.
nurses let me in for like a quick peek because I hadn't done those safety things. They didn't know the health checks. I didn't do right.
Okay.
But the lady was nice enough to say, "Just come see where they are," because she was like, "Also, don't blame us because we know how parents are if anything goes
Yeah.
wrong." She's like, "No, come just see where they are." I see where they are, and then they chase me out. They're like, "Oh, now she's being shy because of you." I'm like, "Ah, but me, I'm just here for the baby now." You know? I'm like, they're like, "I no
But
leave."
you know
So
the
I'm like, but we spoke about this. I was gonna be here, and then I step outside, wait outside for about an hour, and then the next time I see her, she's sleeping. They tell me that she just that we just changed the diaper and all these other things, but this is your umbilical cord. Look at it. You want to cut extra? Because I guess they picked up that my culture is different from the way I spoke. And like, do you want to cut it even more? Because we left it whatever, for a safety length, right? So I was afraid to touch her. There, I think all I did all I did was her aunt came, took her, put her in my hands. So there's a picture. I'm just sitting like this for like, I sat there like for like an hour because I was afraid. I was afraid to move, and her skin was super soft. So now I'm thinking, what if it peels while I'm moving her? Well, I was just, it was weird. What if, no, but like a tomato, if you put it in hot water and you just do this, that's the image I had. That's just the image I had. It's like, what if I touch it, this goes? I was like, no. But it's that first hour is an interesting space to see. I mean, just the body, what women go through, and just me sitting there experiencing it from the outside, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I could never.
Yeah.
I could never.
Yellow.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I just want to share a story. I don't know how far. Like I said, I do apologize for coming in the middle of the conversation. So what happened with my child is when her mother was pregnant. I think it was about 3 months or 4 months into the pregnancy. I was going on this other work exercise. We call it survival. So it's like you go out into the bundus for 2 weeks. You don't have cell reception. You don't have internet. You don't have anything. So you go out for 2 weeks. You are out there and you're doing the things. So before we had actually gone for a sauna, it was before he'd gone for a sauna. So what happened is by that time we're busy with the prep. So they take you through a whole 4 weeks of physical prep for the exercise itself. So during that time I was a bit distant with her mother. So there was a point where she's like, hey, but I feel like you're so distant from me. Like, but no, it's because, I'm trying to get myself mentally and physically prepared for this whole thing. Because like 2 weeks, it's called survival. So like 2 weeks, you only get about 2-liter bottle of water, and then you have to survive of what you can get in the field. So what had happened is, I think it's about 2 days before we left. I don't know how far you guys believe in the spirit realm. But I think about 2 days before I left, my child came to me in a dream and said to me, "Daddy's going to be okay." I think the next day I called the mother and said, "We are going to have a daughter." And she's like, "No, it's going to be a boy." So I was like, "No, I spoke to my child. It's going to be a daughter." And she's like, "No, I don't believe." So I went for the exercise. We came back. We went for the sauna, and there was a girl. And it's like, I said, but I think that is at that point. That is when I realized that I'm ready for this. Hey, I've got this, and because that's all she said. She came to me in a dream and she said, "No, Daddy's going to be all right." Because I think at that point I was stressing about a lot of things. I was stressing about her coming into the world. I was stressing about, am I going to be ready? How am I going to handle it with me living in Cape Town? Her mother at this side. How am I going to be part of her life? But I think at that point, that is when I knew that the journey of me being a father to her, it was going to go smooth. And I'd like to believe that there've been, those curveballs and those challenges along the way. But all in all, the experience has been just a beautiful experience. So I think for me, it was more than just the first day I saw her. I think before she even came into this world, I'd already had a bond with her, and I was, like completely comfortable, relaxed, and in my skin to say that, now I got this. Baby girl came to me and said, we good, we do it. So that's a story that I actually wanted to share for this platform. That I'm not a person who does a lot of ancestral or spiritual things, but at that point it was so clear, it was so evident that I didn't even doubt it. That's why even when I came, I was able to tell her that, no, we're gonna have a girl. And I don't know, I feel like men want girls and women want boy children. I don't know if it's a stereotype, but I think I have that perception that women always say, "No, I want a boy child. I want a boy child." But up until that point, yeah.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
That's
Yes.
amazing, and I just wanna address something like that's so important that you're saying is like that state of readiness, and I think it's important for everyone to know that for every huge and amazing thing in life, you never feel quite ready for it. I know for me, I stressed throughout the whole 9 months and a bit because there was never a point in time where I felt like, what, now I've got this, I'm ready to be a father. Everything, I was looking at everything as if like, yo, how will I provide? If I'm still like sleeping by 7:30, how will I provide? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always that nagging feeling like, yo, how am I gonna be able to maintain the child? Because the money in my pocket wasn't, like, nothing was enough.
Yes.
But
can I ask a question? So just on that, so the research that Hotlines did, was also centered around how men define fatherhood. And a lot of them said provider. And the provider was financial provider. Would you
Yeah.
guys, obviously the money matters, right? But do you guys feel that the provision aspect of parenting is the reason why some guys don't stick around?
I don't feel like it's that only.
Okay.
Look, money is important, right? And money, we live in a world where you've got to have money, right? And it's important to be able to provide for your child, right? The the responsibility you feel towards having brought somebody in here is the same thing, is the same kind of responsibility I would feel if I invited Machita to come hang out at my house and I didn't even make papanyana based, you know? It's the same thing as that I put people into my space, so therefore I want to give them a little bit of something. I think guys don't stick around because they are probably not ready, or they haven't accepted the responsibility in a way that they should have at the time that they should have. I think that's what keeps guys leaving. But I mean, between two people, you're never gonna know, right? Relationships, ya ka lwena,
Yeah.
it's ke relationship ya ka lwena, and whatever happens between us, the next person will never know. But
Yeah.
I don't think money is one of the big problems that guys are there. It's
You
a
know,
small part, in my view.
like it is a part, but if you look at the main reason why like couples get divorced, like the main reason is always like finances. So finances do have a big thing to play, but I also think it's like just the poverty of thought. So when I say the poverty of thought, it's like the inability to think of an alternative solution. You know what I mean? Or to be creative with your solution. So yes, I can't provide money, but what is it that I can provide? Do you know what I mean? So that's the kind of poverty of thought that I'm talking about, where you say, and it's not like forever, right? So it's like at this point in time, I might not have the money that I need to have, or that I feel I need to have to be able to provide for this child, right? But then the inability to then now think of other alternative solutions to this problem, where you're like, okay, maybe I can't provide money for now, but maybe my presence is just as valuable. Like me being there for my kid is just as valuable as me being able to provide, and just that whole thing of being able to stick it out and not worry about like people's perceptions. Yes, maybe Guinea they'll say certain things because you don't have the financial. Maybe the mother of the baby might say certain things. Yes, there will be pressures that come, but you also need to kind of endure that as a person and forsake everything else and put the well-being and safety of this person that is, like you're saying, that you've just invited into your space, to say, um, okay, this is the problem I have, and this is the solution that I am gonna work on for now until the other things are in place. Because we tend to look at life, this moment, as if like this is it, right? I'm stuck at this point in time. Like, you might not be financially ready this year or emotionally ready this year, but if you keep working on it, by the next year it could change. In 2 months it could change. In 3 months it could change. So I think, yeah, the main thing that mainly leads us to maybe taking certain decisions is just the poverty of thought. And what I mean by that is that you just you fail to think of an alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also, especially coming from the hood where I come from, it is a big determining factor, not being able to provide, especially if because finances come with it a lot of things. For instance, uh, for you to be able to rightfully claim, we know that in our African culture, for you to be able to rightfully claim the child as yours, you have to pay in kaulu. That also that is where already from there, that's where things start. There, the snowball effect comes keeps kicking in, and then now a baby is not a cheap exercise, not a cheap endeavor. There's all of us are fathers here, and you're a mother yourself, Gabo, so we
Yeah.
know that a baby is not a cheap exercise at all. So I would believe, unfortunately I was never in that position, but I would believe for a guy where, you have to be a part of someone's life, and you cannot provide that, that would be very hard for you, because as men, there's a lot of things that we define ourselves in. There's a lot of barriers that we put in our, or I say, for me to be a man, I need to be able to hit these certain milestones. So I believe it would be a challenge to a person or a gentleman if you cannot provide. Yeah.
But I think
Can I say?
what's also important. Sorry, Lee. I
No,
think
so yeah,
a
go
lot
on.
of guys are saying fatherhood is provision, financial provision, because the fact is, especially with us as Black people, money can create a barrier to guys that are trying to access children, right? Like in Taulo, for instance, it's a big thing in African culture, like what Tabi was saying. And if like I always find it so ironic how we live in a country where our unemployment rate is like off the roof, and then it's a requirement for a guy to pay a certain amount of money to be able to kind of claim umntwana or be a part of a child's life. And I'm always talking about how I feel like money is blocking Black men from fully parenting or being fathers, active fathers in their child's life. Because I mean, if I can't afford to pay in Ntawulo, then some families are hell-bent on saying, no, if you don't pay in Ntawulo, then you don't get to see Mtana. I always talk about a story I saw a flare off, and the guy was a flatini at the gate of the flat and seeing the kid through the gate. I'm like, this is sad. And when they were telling me, my sister was telling me, no, this guy hasn't paid in Tlawul, and that's why this is happening the way it's happening. And it's so heartbreaking, because you could just be employed, or you could be working somewhere and scraping 2.5 a month that can't really afford him to pay stuff like AKA damages in English.
Can I just say something on what Usanela was saying? The poverty of thought is, I think it's a huge thing, right? So, for an example, I grew up with a guy. His name is Tabiso, right? Back home, Tabiso. I think he had his first child just after high school. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, he was two classes ahead of me. So he's my best friend is his cousin, right? So I grew up with him as well, right? So he had his first child, I think, when I was final year matric. Final year matric kind of explains itself. I think
but let's be clear, it could be,
Also, you can repeat matric; it's still possible. But I was leaving high school, right? I was leaving high school. And I think he had his first child when I did first year, right? He was unemployed. I think about 18 months later, he had a second child with the same girl, right? He's got 3 kids with this girl. He's been employed on and off. It's been tough, but I can promise you, if I call him right now, I'm gonna hear his kids. His kids are gonna take his phone to try to talk to me, because he makes. I think he just figured it out that the money he doesn't have, but the kids have more fun, and the relationship he has with his kids is much more valuable than having money. Being able to give them 5 bob or korekama sweets or something like that. So, which is also an example I took from him when it happened with me. So when Tapel was mentioning the difficulty of being out and you can't provide, it's happened to me, right? I got retrenched at one point. And that's a whole other story. But I got retrenched, and it was difficult for me to provide physically money. Right? We still lived in the same place because I had saved up money. She was employed, but I was technically unemployed. I was hustling. I wasn't just sitting around, which is the solution. It's in my head. I was like, I don't have that income, that big income, but I probably can get a grand here, a grand there, half of this, pay this, buy this, make sure that thing. Which I think when in my head, when you're a parent, you don't give up. You don't give up on yourself. You don't give up on the child. You don't give up on the person that you're with, that you have a child with. And which is why Story Satabi, so for me, we call him Father Abraham Kukasida. Well, me and his cousin, we just call him Father Abraham because we think he's got 3 kids. He probably has more. He doesn't know. We just joke about it like that, right?
The father of nations.
Right, but
Yeah.
he does that,
Chloe,
and for me, it's one of those things I can't give up on that just because I don't have money.
Chloe, I think that's like stories like yours is stories that need to be told so that guys can have that encouragement. Because, like you said, the dynamics are very different in many relationships, in many families. For instance, Karabo did allude to the fact that in certain families, if you haven't paid in Klaulo, you don't have access to your child at all. They'll literally refuse you access to your child. Um, I I was supposed to. I haven't yet paid in Klaulo for my child, but I'm supposed to as per traditions and as per norms. But that's a conversation for another, a whole different
No,
conversation.
we
But
must have it
I
now.
was.
Let us update.
I better go spend time with my
Hey,
daughter. I can't be online the whole thing. But let me just say this. Let me just say this that I was never denied access to my child from the first day. Like I said, from the day that she was born, I was there. I've been there for all the major moments that I could possibly be there because I was busy getting my life together in Cape Town, and her
you
and her
guys,
mother were
I'm
this
gonna
side.
turn the light.
Okay, and her mother were this side, but there was never a point where the fact that I didn't pay in Kaulo was a barrier. But I count myself lucky because it did come up. The conversation did come up, and it has come up after that this has to be done so that certain rights and norms that are practiced on my side of the family can also be practiced on her side, so that she can take my name. Because currently she's
Yeah.
calling, she's using her mother's name. So things like those, and those are things that I will observe just so that I can get what I want with my child. But I was just lucky that there was never a barrier for me. But like I said, that the question of finance is one that like you say, like I say, your story is a story that Amachita need to hear. That dude, just because as long as you can provide a 1 kilogram of nan once in a while, you can come with a packet of nappies once in a while. You can buy baby koyako pepe once in a while. Instead of buy a 6 pack ile machita, that money a 6 pack. You can actually compensate decent collection of clothes if we can go pay. Those things are cheap. It's like you said, the poverty of the mind. But the thing is, Mama Chita, because now you get also ladies, Garabo, you'll maybe attest or refute what I'm saying. Ladies that also will look down on a guy because they cannot provide in a continuous, sustainable, or significant way. Or we pitantate mari bonangwana, and and they know your situation. Not that they're saying that because maybe you're flouting your money. They know your situation, that you don't work, you're busy hustling, but then they use that to demean you, to take you down. So you see, even the ladies, we need to bring them on board with this conversation. Say that for you to be able to stop calling your baby daddies deadbeat dads, how are you treating them? How are you bringing them in the picture? How are you encouraging them to say that, dude, even if it's 50 rand to buy a box of Nestam for your child, then for the next 3, 4, 5 meals you provided for. I think also the ladies, they need to be brought in on this conversation, and their perception also revamped and upgraded, Nyana, to say that just because a guy cannot give you the whole steak, you cannot get the steak every month, doesn't mean that they're useless.
And
So,
Sorry, I just need to read the comments. So, Uzbu said, yeah, let us also be fair. Why engage in unprotected sex knowing very well we may get pregnant and not afford the contract?
Can I answer that?
Do you feel like you guys are bearing the brunt of unprotected sex?
Can I answer that? So I personally have strong views against things like this, right? So for one, this is consensual, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not forcing somebody to do something that they do, and it's not like all pregnancies were just as a result of unprotected sex. Sometimes you're using condoms and they break. Sometimes you are
99.9%.
99.9%, right? Sometimes you are also uneducated. You're using condoms incorrectly. Okay, so there's a myriad of reasons why people get pregnant. Sometimes it was just recklessness. I get it. Okay, so I personally have strong views against the assumption that we just use unprotected sex without the consequences. For one, I knew, I've always known since since I looked, so I was tracing my family and the ages that firstborns normally are born their parents. I've seen for the past 4 generations, every single firstborn was born when their parent is 25. So I expected between the age of 25 and 26, I'm having a child. And it wasn't, and they always say firstborns are never born. I never planned for, right? But in my head, I knew it was going to happen. So in my mind, if it happens, I'm just going to step up. I'm not going to half step. I'm going all in. So yeah, that whole thing, yeah, unprotected sex, guys. I feel like it's blaming the man also. It's also how I felt about the whole Nhlawulo thing when it was happening. So Tapelo is lucky. He hasn't had to, but he needs to, right? If I had to give you unsolicited advice, in Jack, is I would say do it. You do it because it's important. Firstly, for your child, because in our families, there's still toxic people who would then say, "Wena, Papa how didn't pay Nhlawulo, when I was called," those kinds of things, and those things are hurtful. Your child might not tell you, but those things are hurtful, right? I know this because I've got family members who I've heard say that about kids. I've had family members who've had that been said towards them. So that's also one of the reasons why eventually, after many months of saying no, ke Motswana, and in my culture we don't pay Nhlawulo because Nhlawulo it basically says I am saying I did something wrong with this person. It's like I stole from you, so I'm repaying you for stealing. It doesn't say we had a relationship, we wanted to have the child. You don't know if my intention is to marry your child. You don't know if your child actually just wanted to have a child with me because I've got good genes. You don't know these things, right?
You're not
You
part of
know,
the
so
conversation.
you're not part of these conversations. So that's how I felt. Those were my views because they were also uneducated. I didn't understand her culture. I didn't see what it meant for the parents, what it would mean for me as far as access to the child, right? And since I made the decision to do it, it's been a great relationship as far as the parents, the grandparents, right? So they know that this child, Libitso la Hai, her people, where they're from, and you can't argue with me over excess. You can argue with me over the inconvenience of excess. So if you want to take the child, when you guys as a family we're planning on having something, like umcimbi or whatever, and I wanted to have the child, you can then say to me, can you not maybe move it to next week because this is what we want to do as this side of the family? Then I can then say to you guys, even me, I want to do this. I can be stubborn there, but I'm not going to be, because I mean, I should be wise enough to understand that this is not just my child. She doesn't just have one side of the family. So that's just my view about this whole consequences of sex. The consequence of sex is that there will be a child. What happens after it, it's not that you need to just go around saying it's unfair, it's this, you broke this, you stole from us, uphula ihlahla, uphula ama-window, ngizoxolisa. Those whole things I had issues with, but now I see where they're coming from and why they're done. But a lot of families just use it as an extortion tool. A lot of
And
families
it's
just use
like,
it as yeah, go on.
I think it's like the families. The main perception is that you left wherever you were and you approached our daughter and wamluta, like wamdoma some way somehow, right? And
And
now
they don't
you
know.
usumoshile, yeah, kanti, hey, and yeah.
Yeah, they don't know this.
And you are the one being pursued.
Yeah,
Most
they don't know
most
where they're
likely,
being duped out here.
they don't
They don't
know.
know they're free. Out here confusing us in the streets. Yeah,
This guy
out
is
there confusing us.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Karab, and not
No.
to backtrack, I think also we need to understand the importance of time, because there are times when I feel like I work so much that I don't have enough time. So it's not necessarily that the money is per se an issue, because sometimes there are people like with money, like imali engangemali. and they live with their kids, but they still don't see them. You know what I mean? Like they don't know their kids, but they're in the same house. So I think we need to go back to basics and maybe start to look at like the time. Like, okay, how do we structure time so that the kids know that they are also important and they are part of our lives? That's just my view on that, because there's times when like busy, like kunama night shift, you are pulling midnight, and by the time you're done, like your child is sleeping. I know with my dad, so I love my dad. He was always there for us, but I kind of feel like the only time I really got to know him is after retirement, right? Because apart from that, he would get up like about 3 to go and like catch the train, right? And by the time he comes back, it's like around 6, 7. It's already dark. I'm doing homework. He wants to watch news. He's already tired. He sleeps early so that he can, you know what I mean? And that cycle continued.
Those cycle begins in, yeah.
Yeah, it continued for years.
Oscar, I am being demanded, so I'm going to have to love and leave you now.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Shift
Also conclude now.
Yeah, shifty kadile. Kadile. Say bye bye to the uncles and aunties. Say bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, bye guys. I have to.
Okay.
Enjoy.
So I think to answer Neo said, you think it's right for women should be constantly asking for assistance. We answered this earlier on when we talked about participation and how guys can participate without being what we call micromanaged. So would you say some guys need to be micromanaged?
Some guys might need to be micromanaged.
Yeah,
you know your person. You chose that person, so you should know. Just pull them. You should know. But I think you should know the buttons, right? You would know what would make them want to work, what would make them want to then step up and say, okay, I am either going to be annoyed by this consistent asking, or really I am, not participating like I should as half of the parent group in this. So yeah, I think you know your person. Some guys just need to do it.
I love that. We have another question. What are your views? And we're gonna just wrap it up. Maybe we could cut it off 20 minutes. We've got about 10 minutes to go. So, Zbusati, what are your views, dads, on child being raised by a village?
Can I say, as a child who was raised by a village, who's still being raised by a village, right? I stand behind that. But I always say we must guard against certain things that were wrong by having certain people in around you that affected you, that have created the kind of perceptions you may have ended up having, right? So, like I said, with me, when I was much younger, just before I was 16, I was very, very much into my books, very much into the story in my head. And then I turned 16, and then all of a sudden I was the tallest kid. Well, I've always been tall, but I was like even taller. Even now I was more attractive, right? Now the girls are seeing me. Now I'm becoming more appealing to the opposite sex. And the kind of guys that I had around me, all they did was just try to hypersexualize me, right? And those were older people, because I was tall, I could hang out there, and it looked like I was one of them. So the whole village thing is that, I mean, the reason why I'm saying I'm still raised by a village is that I've got family that's much older. I've got family that's around about the same age as me. And I've got younger cousins that I look at that I'm like, these kids are smart and I need to learn from what they currently are doing. So I agree with it. I think, but you just need to be careful on who you allow around your child. Yeah, because I mean, with me, especially because I have a daughter, and the situation with women, black women, right now, is I'm super sensitive to certain people. I'm super sensitive to certain kinds of discussions that I hear, and I hear my daughter being around them. I try to guard against that.
I like that.
Yeah, same here. Same here. It's like it's that whole thing of like what kind of, so you must be, as the parent, I think, yes, the child must be social, learn social skills, learn from others, but like you must be the final guard to say, this we take in, my child, this one I asishiye mnyango, I funeg like higher, you know. Yeah, the buck needs to stop with you as the parent to say that this is how we want to raise our child, and whatever is going to be in the best interest of the child, let's take that. But whatever is going to take the child and amenze ahlehle muva, and like you're saying, start being destructive and learning all these destructive things, and asishiye emnyango leyo ayifuneki like
that. So to wrap it up, from both of you guys, how do we then, as a society, as a Black community, define fatherhood just outside of financial provision?
I see it with my child now as I think I'm glad I made the decision that when she was living in KZN, post the destruction of the unit, the dismantling of the unit that we were, I all the money I had, I would, not even all the money I had, what little money I had, I would travel down, take the bus, take the plane, just to go see her, spend a day with her, even if I needed to. Just her knowing that, look, time at a thing, he's there, he just doesn't live with us, but he will make an effort to see me as often as he can. I think that making that decision has made me realize that that's why my view is just money. You want money is important, but if you don't have the money, doesn't mean you should neglect the rest of the other things. Just teaching your child to tie the shoes is, I think, it's those important lessons. Just right now, my child is learning to wash dishes, right, by herself without supervision. She's policing me on my saggy pants.
It's nice.
They never clean, my guy. They you can see if you take them, you're like, here's tricks. Hey, this hey, Tamati still here. You can see, but like look, I like the effort, right? But I think we shouldn't make it about money. We shouldn't make it about your inability or ability to provide more than expected. I think it should be about the bond and the relationship you have with your child. Because the thing about that people forget, and which my girlfriend always reminds me, is that bana ba gola. They get to the point where they then realize that actually in life this is what happens, right? When adulting hits you, and the child then realizes that actually my parents did so much with very little. They are not. They didn't have a lot, and they pushed so hard to make sure that I at least have something. So I think being there, being present, is much more valuable than money for me.
Yeah, and like you're saying, Lee, it's like fatherhood, the easiest definition is the quality of time. Like that's all. Nothing can substitute your time. Like when you pass on from this earth, the main thing that you'll have regrets about is like, how did I spend my time, not how did I spend my money, So if we can then start to look at like the quality of the time that we spend with our kids, like I know with my son, there's this niggling feeling in my mind whenever I'm with him and I look at my phone, I'm like, but he's gonna pick this up, I'm not like fully present, I'm not there, because I'm talking to people kai. So I want to start maybe looking at taking away the phone when I'm with him and just like paying that full attention, because that's ultimately all the child needs. It's your time, but not, you can be there and still not be there. So like the time also needs to be like packed full of quality and attention, And for me, that's the ultimate thing that determines whether you're a good father or not, I think, or you are on the right track with in your fatherhood journey. It's like the quality of the interaction and the time.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I'm busy taking notes. This is a masterclass. Thank you, James.
Yeah, Taba, I know Shab Zenola he must be half of something examining that. Where you listening? Come, micromanage him.
Yes.
Micromanage him.
We love you. Zubu says, thank you for the wonderful conversation. May God grant you the wisdom, courage, and strength to be man of honor, raising amazing citizens. I think, the whole amazing citizens thing, like, fatherhood is, for me, it's like the cornerstone of society, because I think family determines what kind of human beings we become. And the kind of human beings we become builds the society we live in. So that's why I'm so passionate about families and building healthy families, whether or not we are in a relationship with our partners. And that's what I'm addressing next week with some moms, to say, what are we doing to prevent these men from being there and trying to do their best? Because that we can really act as barriers. Sometimes it's not money, sometimes it's us as women, as females. So that's the conversation we're having next week. But thank you so much. This was insightful. This was beautiful. This had me emotional. I love it, everything. And thank you everyone who joined us. Thank you, Zubusa, for your participation. Thank you, Neo. Thank you, Lady. Thank you, everyone. One last thing.
Superstar. We are both.
Yes, no. Actually, one last thing. Let us not raise our daughters for marriage or our sons for husbandhood. Let us raise them to be responsible.
I agree with that 100%. And
fathers will agree to that. But I think this guy must be husband
to be happy.
What's that? What did you say?
His son must be husband material. That's all. That's all he wants. That's his dream. That's his dream. I actually just want my child to be happy with herself.
Yeah.
Right? And it's partly because of, and it's a very recent view for me just wanting her to be happy with herself and her choices, whatever they may be. It's a recent view because I've been talking to some of my cousins that I thought I had a good relationship with, and then now they're telling me about things as women, as they experience life, and I'm like, yo, I don't want my child to have to go through this.
Yes.
And I feel like I need to find a way of making sure that she understands that her happiness is the most important thing to her. She doesn't have to be happy because I want it to be.
Yeah.
She just needs to be happy. And I mean, when you're happy with yourself, the rest of the world, just works out for you. Everything just balances out. And you give it out to the world.
Now you bring out another thing. Now we're not going to close this thing, because I also feel like there's something that very important that I need to add to what you're saying. And I think that is, like, instead of molding kids to be who we want them to be, like, we're all brought here for a purpose, so it's helping your child uncover their gifts, their abilities, themselves, so that they can truly be happy. Because if Guti, you are on this earth but you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then that leads to unhappiness. So if we can help them really truly discover and nurture their gifts, then I think our children will definitely be happy.
Yes.
True that.
Wrap, gentlemen. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us for this wonderful conversation. I hope the conversation continues on fatherhood, which is such an important role in society. But again, thank you for engaging me, gentlemen. Asante and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Nice meeting you, bro.
Good to meet you, bro. Cheers.
Sharp.